Thank you for joining us for this special World Channel digital presentation of Opiates from the Inside, part of World Channel's month-long programming on mass incarceration in America. Today's event is being presented in collaboration with our public media partners at WXXI in Rochester, New York, Oregon Public Broadcasting in Portland, Oregon, and ideastream in Cleveland, Ohio, as part of a joint journalism project called The Opiate Crisis, The Ripple Effect. Funding for today's event comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Please be sure to share your comments on Facebook and across social media using the hashtag WorldXReentry. And be sure to stay connected after the stream for a conversation on the ripple effects of opiate addiction. Thank you.
Presentation of this program is made possible in part by a grant from the Lewis S. and Molly B. Wolk Foundation. Made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Heroin made me feel, the feeling it gave me was, I can't even explain the feeling. It was just the best feeling I ever had. And it was better than when I looked in my son's eyes when he was born.
When my husband Justin and I were using, at first we'd try to hide it from our kids, but it started coming to the point where the kids would just come into the room and we would tell them to leave, but it didn't really matter anymore. So they had witnessed us shooting up. They witnessed us smoking crack.
3 months here, 5 months here, 15 days, 2 weeks. If I had to guess how much time I've spent in jail, it's been like 5-6 years. All petty larcenies and for possession.
At some point in school, teacher asks everybody what they want to be when they grow up. And somebody raises their hand and says they want to be a firefighter, somebody wants to be an astronaut, somebody wants to be a doctor. Nobody raises their hand and says, I want to be addicted to opioids or any drug. But at some point between everything that you wanted to do and all the dreams you had, and this point here, someone ends up an addict. So we have to find out how we're getting from here to here and try and stop that before it takes hold of them. Because once it takes hold of them, for many people there is no way out, and for some people the only way out is death.
I thought I was going to be a doctor, a paramedic, because my brother was a paramedic for a certain amount of years for rural metro, and I always wanted to follow his steps. So it was either going to be a paramedic or a mechanic, because I love to work in cars too.
I was raised by my dad. My parents got divorced when I was 2. Raised by my dad. He did the best he could, raising me and my older brother. I think I was about 16 when I dropped out of school, got my own apartment, worked 40 hours a week, and I just loved making the money.
Out of 3 things, one, I wanted to be a veterinarian, but as soon as I found out I had to let some animals die, that was a wrap. And then oceanographer, and then a cosmetologist.
The face of opioid addiction is the face of our country. There's no specific demographic background that it impacts. It impacts everyone. It's in our urban cities. It's in the suburban areas. It's in the rural areas. It knows no ethnic boundaries, no socioeconomic lines that is not impacted by this. It affects everyone, and it impacts everyone in the family.
I think it was 31 or 32. I was having a lot of back problems, kept going to the doctors, getting x-rays done. They found that I had something wrong with one of the discs in my back, and they wanted to do surgery. So they were giving me pain medication. Once the last script came and I couldn't get any more meds, I had a gentleman that I used to wait on, an older man, and he used to come in and give me a cocktail of pills every day. And I was at work one day, and I thought I was getting the flu, had body aching, and I never realized that I was addicted. I really thought I was just had the flu or coming down with something. And to the gentleman who was giving me the cocktail pills, he came in and gave them to me, and I took them. About 40 minutes later, I was normal feeling. And that's when it hit me like, wow, I'm addicted. I'm addicted to pain medication. So I was dating this man, and he brought me a bag of heroin home, and I sniffed it and instantly fell in love. I fell in love that day that I sniffed my first bag of heroin, fell in love with it. I had this euphoric feeling. Nothing could touch me. I could work 100 hours. I could wait on 50 tables at once. I fell in love. I loved the feeling it gave me. I felt like Wonder Woman. Nothing could stop me.
I started using drugs after hardcore drugs, pills regularly after my mom passed away. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and we had about 4 years after she was diagnosed from that she passed away. And I didn't know how to deal with that. She was my best friend. She was always there for me. And losing that was really hard. I didn't want to go through that. So I found her pills at her house, and I started selling them, and I started taking them. And pills are expensive. Once you need to buy them and you don't have them anymore, they're so expensive, and they're really hard to be able to afford. And heroin's way cheaper.
She robbed from my father. He was using oxycodone because he had some back problems, and so he was on medication for that, and she robbed his medication. And to this day, my sister will not let her in her house because of that incident, how she could rob somebody of some pain medication when he was in his late 90s at the time.
So heroin was my security blanket. It blocked out all my bad feelings. It blocked out the sadness. It blocked out the grief. And I loved it. And I thought it loved me back. I would have done anything for it. I did do anything for it. I had no self-respect. I had no hope. I was prostituting at times to get money for my drugs. I would steal from anybody. I lost all my friends and family, my kids. My house, my cars, my license, my cosmetology license. I lost everything. And it's not even really that I lost it. I gave it away slowly for this drug.
I started off with weed. Loved the high of being high off of weed. It was funny, always had the munchies, it made I was able to work, I was able to function with weed. Went from weed to heroin and coke.
And so I'll give them a call.
Okay.
Connect. Okay. So can you talk to me a little bit about your family? Like, where are your parents right now?
My parents left to Puerto Rico because of my drug use. My dad gave me $80,000 when he retired, and I just shot every single penny up. And they got tired of it. I didn't really think they were going to leave because my daughters are their only grandkids. So I'm like, oh, yeah, not going nowhere. The girls are going to hold y'all down. And no, one day I went to the house sick, asking my dad for money. And he said, I have my tickets to go to Puerto Rico. What you going to do?
It's my understanding that you were, clean during the birth of your children. Can you talk about what ended up happening after that period and how you ended up using again? Like, how soon after did you start again?
I started again right after I had my second child. I started with crack. I couldn't take care of my daughters anymore, so I gave them to my mom. I started smoking crack. Gave the girls to my mom. Like, I couldn't take care of them. You know, I was too busy trying to find how to get high. So my mom took over, and that's when my life just started going down the hill. I had to be out hustling. That's where I started my boosting. I started boosting to get my next high. Then from there, I started shooting up the heroin and the coke. And it was just a hustle every day. Like, I love my daughters. I love them unconditionally, but it's just something that I couldn't put down, you know? Like, I had to get my next fix.
The women that we tend to serve here at the correctional facility tend to have a lot of guilt and shame related to their drug addiction, and the fact that they've broken apart some of their vital relationships and hurt their children in the process.
I got messed up with some bad people, and I did some messed up stuff. I mean, I went to prison for it, so it's nothing I can't admit to now. And I remember, you know, my son's playing, and it's a beautiful sunny day out, and I have to have the blinds drawn and the doors shut and locked because I knew the police kept coming, knocking at the door, looking for me. And I kept, shh, be quiet. You gotta play quieter. Go in the basement and play. You know, so I had him locked in his own prison due to my drug addiction. He couldn't be a typical, 4 or 5 at that time, year-old little boy. Like, he lived in my prison. Are you kidding me? What is going on with this? Unfortunately, it's broken, but this one isn't, just this one. This is my 28-year-old. He's doing well, thank goodness. He didn't follow my footsteps. And then my son Joshua, who's now 21 and is in active addiction, homeless, running for his life. Hi, can you do me a favor? Looking for my son. Can you just page to see if he's here? His name's Joshua Sprague. Sprague.
John Sprague, the front desk. John Sprague. He was here?
Today?
Yeah, they stopped another state. They
found him shooting up in the bathroom or something, right? He told me, he called me that night. I'm scared he could be overdosed dead in an alley somewhere. And has anyone seen this kid? His name is Josh. He was staying here till about a week ago.
Who's here?
He came here during the day? I know they put him out about a week and a half ago because they found him with paraphernalia, shooting up in the bathroom, and other stuff. Yeah, well, you don't have to. Hi.
I wasn't ready for all that. It's all right, I guess.
Where are you staying, Joshua?
On the street.
What about a detox center?
Yeah, I'd like to go, but I'm not gonna lie to you, like, I want to get a good shot in before I go. That's what I've been trying to do. I just want one good shot, and I'll go to open access, and done.
I'm not giving you money for dope, so I don't know what to tell you about that.
I need stocks, I need boxes.
Okay, well, I can buy you some when you get to detox.
Why can't you buy it growing up with my mom being an addict? You know, she was in and out of my life. I was staying at my grandma's, you know, going to school, and then I went to foster care, and it was kind of rough. Last night I slept at a trap house, which is a house that sells drugs. I used heroin last night around midnight. That was my last use. I haven't used yet today, so I'm going to have to figure out how to get something to get off sick, because I'm dope sick right now.
He was caught in the middle of it. He was caught in the middle of a storm. And he really paid for it at the end, you know. At the time, I didn't think I was a bad mom. The house was cleaned. He had food. But he didn't get me. He didn't have me. I'd be passed out on the couch or ripping and running, finding more means and ways to get one more. He was caught in the middle of a storm. Hurricane.
I want to get clean. I just want to go get high one more time.
One time's never enough, Josh.
Yeah, but literally, if I went and got high right now, I'd go straight to open access and I'd sit there until I got out of bed.
Have a good day. When you get high, go over there then.
I don't have any money, and I'm not about to go boosting and go to jail.
You know, if you went to jail, I'd hear and I wouldn't be, you know, I'd have peace of mind. You know what it's like being a mom and not knowing if you're dead or alive because I haven't heard from you in a week or two. But I couldn't handle if I had to bury you, Joshua. And I've worked way too hard this time. I just don't know if I could handle it.
When Justin and I were actively shooting heroin or crack or cocaine, whatever drug we were shooting at the time, Jacob was old enough to know what was going on. And he took on a lot of mom and dad roles. He would wake up with Bella and make her breakfast, put on cartoons for them. He would pick needles up and put them up higher so she couldn't reach them.
Stephanie and Justin were both arrested for petty larceny, for robbing food. I got a telephone call from the Rochester Police Department saying, come and pick up your grandchildren. Their parents were just arrested. I dropped what I was doing and went and picked them up. And they've been with me ever since.
Recovery is possible. Achieving sobriety is something that is possible. You see it every day. You see success stories, but you also see those failures. But you can see people, those light bulb moments go off while they're here, and you just hope and pray for the best.
Once I got sober, I started having to face the fact that, you know, I'm on the other side now waiting for the phone call from deaths of people that I love. And on January 12th, I got the phone call that it was my husband, Justin, who had passed away. And it's not a phone call anybody wants to get. And it changes everything. Some of us want to go to the field, and some of us want to check that spot you guys were told about. Yeah, we can do so what spots? Donnie with one group. After my husband Justin passed away, I started Hope Dealers BTC for BeTheChange. We go out every Sunday. We meet between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. This is one of our weekly cleanup spots. This is a highly active area because we're on North Clinton. This is our ground zero. And there's kids who live all around here. They're walking through needles. There's needles everywhere. I used to shoot up behind 10 Sullivan. That was one of my spots. Hello? There's a needle right here. Right there. Last Sunday, we picked up 437 needles. We passed out probably about 60 lunches. Sometimes just that lunch bag is giving them enough hope to see, okay, they care, and maybe I'm going to trust them enough to let them help me. Someone's got to pick them up.
Okay, I was going to be a pink girl for Halloween. My costume was so pink-tastic that I could hardly wait to go trick-or-treating. When I woke up in the morning, I went to turn on my light.
What I want to say to my dad is, I love him, and I'm so grateful for taking the kids and giving them everything that you gave me, and for giving me the gift of recovery, because I couldn't have done it without him.
Papa. What?
So.
What?
I love you so much.
Uh-oh. What are you looking for, Jake?
Can we get movies?
One.
In my 24 years working for the Sheriff's Department, I have seen issues and problems come and go. In my 24 years, I have never seen anything as large as this opioid crisis. Nothing has reached as many people in such a negative way. Not the gang violence, not the issues we've had in our communities, nothing. The opioid epidemic is the biggest crisis I've seen in a quarter century.
I knew that this home was safe for me. This was a safe environment to get clean and to help me get clean. So 2017, I came back here, and the staff believed in me so much, being willing and able to take me back the third time, believing in me that I could find myself. I left here December 28th, and I started working here as staff, became from client to staff on January 8th. You know, Brad, I just want to express to you, like, being a client here with you and being staff, just from the time you came in to the time now, as of today, the growth I've seen in you and the willingness and the thirstiness of your recovery. I really admire that.
All right, Lisa, so this is your performance evaluation, your performance review. We do these quarterly. One of your goals for the next period that you identified was being able to set healthy boundaries, and the biggest boundary you've always struggled with is setting boundaries with Josh and your kid. How are you doing with that?
Josh is doing well. He's in detox. He went in on the 12th or 11th of February, and he comes home March 8th. The boundaries I've set, obviously, Sarah, you know, it was really hard for me, and I think there was a missing factor last time in my recovery is the boundaries with Josh. You know, with him and getting clean, and they say it's 1 out of every 6 people that will actually progress in their recovery and stay clean. I have no expectations. I just pray every day for the best because he's my son. I would give him my last breath to allow him to live. But when it comes to my recovery, like I said, I have to protect it at all costs, and if that's protecting it against my son, I will. And I refuse to go back out and die. I refuse to be a statistic today.
And I know last time I didn't follow any of the rules. I don't want to live like that anymore.
Well, you don't have to. You know, you're home. So just do the right thing. That's all we ask of you, and you got a fresh start, man.
Addiction it's a very difficult process to recover from an opioid use disorder or any other substance use disorder. It's a long, difficult road, and what's needed is a lot of support. It's a lot of effort on the part of the person trying to recover, but it's also a lot of effort from their families and from the community around them to make that possible. And I hope that people realize that it's not as easy as saying, well, why can't you just stop? Why won't they just stop? It's more complicated than that.
I know things were kind of like disappointing because of the whole court situation and not getting out or anything like that. But at least it's taken care of.
Yes.
It's not hanging over your head.
Right.
It's over.
And I guess I needed to stay a little bit longer, just sit my ass down, and I'm proud of myself because I was sure going to go out there and use, boy.
Really? Like, when did you realize I'm done?
When did I realize that I'm done? Just seeing the same people coming back and dying, leaving the jail and just dropping dead. I don't want to be one of those. Like, when I'm sober, I'm a great mother. I have a great family, and that's where I want to be at.
So was there like a aha moment where you're like, I'm done, this is over? Like, do you remember how you felt? Like, you know, like they talk about in self-help, they'll talk about a moment of clarity. Did you have a moment of clarity? Where it was here?
It was in here, yeah. Hi, Yolati. Can I speak with the girls, please? Hi, Jalexis. How are you? It's Mommy. Please listen to Titi, okay? You know, she's... Huh? Aw. That's so cute, baby. Gracias. You know, Mommy loves you, okay? And Mommy has a surprise for you next week. My message to my daughters, if they see this, is that Mommy is sorry, and I'm trying very hard to work on myself, for myself and for them, that I love them. I'll never give up. and that I want to be with them. That I'm trying very hard just to be with them. They know I love them. Like, they know that. I know they need me, you know. I just want them to give me that chance to be the mommy that they know that I can be. That I love them. They're my world.
Right now, I don't know if she's capable of taking the kids back, but I'm involving her more and more with the children. By court order, she gets the children for 2 days a week for 2 hours per day, and then 1 overnight a month.
I love living in recovery. I love the relationships I have with my kids and my dad and my family and friends. So I try to take things one day at a time. I'm going to be sober for the rest of today because I'm with support and family, and it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good night. I don't know. I hope so, though.
Presentation of this program is made possible in part by a grant from the Lewis S. and Molly B. Wolk Foundation. Made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Hastings, executive producer for World Channel, coming to you from Boston. Thank you for joining us on Facebook this afternoon to see the premiere of a new film co-produced with WXXI and World Channel. I am really heartened by the many people who came to this Facebook Watch today to see this new film. There's a lot going on with opiates in this country, and public media is trying to share many stories of how people are dealing with the crisis. I'm joined today with our partners from around the country. We're doing something really interesting today. We're on Facebook, but we're also on Skype. Our partners at WXXI have partnered with other stations around the country, ideastream in Cleveland and Oregon Public Broadcasting in Oregon, in Portland. And they are all three stations are here with me now on Facebook. Let me introduce you. On your page right now, you probably should be able to see three other people, other journalists who've just watched the film with you in real time. I'm going to introduce them starting to I think that would be my left. Evan Dawson, WXXI. He's host of Connections at WXXI in Rochester. Up above Evan is Sarah Jane Roston-Fletch. And I'm sorry if I've messed up your name. Just sitting here for 30 minutes, like, oh, just make sure I say her name right. And to her right is Marlene Harris-Taylor, who is ideastream in Cleveland's health reporter. I just want to say that World Channel is very grateful that you guys have allowed us to share this new film and to attach to the project that you guys are doing this week, which is pretty exciting, which is called the Opiate Crisis, the Ripple Effect. Before we get started, I wonder if maybe you could give us a little bit of overview of the reporting that you guys are going to be doing this week and why it's so special.
Talk show about pain management, because you hear doctors in Portland, Cleveland, Rochester, there's a real reckoning with the fact that we need to start recalibrating our expectations for pain in this country. You can't go back in the past and rework the last 20 years, but we're going to talk about approaches going forward that they're trying in Portland, in Cleveland, in Rochester, what patients are feeling about this. There's a lot of fear among patients who are not addicted but rely on opioids. So there's a lot to talk about tomorrow, and we're eager to have that discussion across three states. So that's at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. But for the rest of the week, just a quick overview. I saw Sarah's comment on Facebook. She says, while she was watching this film over the last half hour, Sarah wrote, "It's important to provide services for the grandparents and extended families and step up to take the kids when their parents are incarcerated or unable to care for them." That's exactly what our reporter Veronica Volk is working on later this week, about the effects on families. People who are not addicted or not on opioids are often affected in various ways. So, Sarah, we agree with you, and that's really tough. Rochester and WXXI are going to be reporting on that. We reported today, you heard from Karen Shakurji, on inherited patients. That's what doctors, how they're working with patients who are already on opioids, and people who are saying, you know, what's going to happen to me? Are you going to ban opioids? Is there a stigma attached? It's really tough for them. Caitlin White, our reporter, is working on Narcan in the community, trying to train a lot of people to be ready with Narcan in case of emergency here. Tiana Magnon, another reporter for us, is working on individual communities, trying to wipe it out in their own neighborhoods. So there's a lot going on here in Cleveland. And with that, let's send it over to ideastream. And Marlene Harris-Taylor is going to tell us what Cleveland is working on.
Thank you, Evan. Evan, I'm looking forward to being a part of that conversation with you tomorrow on that talk show. And Chris, I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this conversation with your audience on Facebook through Skype. And Evan, you mentioned pain management, and that's one of the key ripple effects from this opioid crisis, that now that people cannot use those pills for pain management, what can they do? And that's one of the stories that we're covering here in Cleveland. And in fact, that's one of the stories that I'm covering. And specifically, I'm going to look at the issue of medical marijuana. It's legal here now in Ohio, and it's legal in many states across the United States. Is that an option for pain management? We're also, Evan, you mentioned the Narcan issue. We are also looking closely at the Narcan issue here in Cleveland as well, in Ohio. We're looking at local libraries who are looking at ways that they can help people with the Narcan issue. Now, some libraries in the country are stocking Narcan. Our libraries in Ohio are not stocking Narcan yet. But libraries are putting forth the question around, should people start to carry Narcan? We know that the U.S. Surgeon General is now encouraging people to carry Narcan. We're also looking at local schools across Ohio. There's some schools who are starting to stock Narcan and have it in schools. Not so much for the students, but for parents and other visitors coming into the buildings. One of the other ripple effects that we found in the medical world that we're going to be looking at is something that we're calling heroin hearts. One of the things that doctors have found is that when people are using dirty needles, they are sometimes infecting their hearts, and they're having to, in record numbers, starting to replace hearts and heart valves of really young folks. And one of the insidious things about this drug crisis is that we know that people relapse over and over again. So what they're finding is that they replace the person's heart valve, and then a few months later, they're right back. And then a few months later, they might be right back again. And this is a very expensive operation. So we're looking at it not only at the human cost, but we're also looking at the cost to the system. And throughout our coverage, we're looking at the cost to people, but also to our society in the courts, in our government, and in our schools and in our society. So that's a quick overview of what we're covering here in Cleveland. And so I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to talk about what they're covering.
Hi, thanks, Marlene. Like you were saying, it's the collaboration between all of us that just makes this so special. All of the Narcan stuff that Marlene was just talking about, we aren't really touching on that so much here in Oregon. So it's great that these stories can all come together to offer a much more comprehensive look at this crisis. Of course, one of the things we are touching on is marijuana and this place that plays in pain management. It is legal here both medically and recreationally, so people can sort of come into that use of marijuana at different stages and for different points of pain. So that kind of speaks to the broader area that we're looking at, which is alternative pain methods. What are physicians doing? What are nurses doing in order to be prepared to treat pain in different ways? This goes all the way back to doctors being in medical school and learning from the beginning, what are other ways of treating pain? What are other ways of watching to make sure that addiction isn't happening? So pulling it all the way back to that early stage. And then looking at scientists and what kind of stuff is being created in order to provide options that aren't opioids, for example. A really cool one that's being worked on here, and we have a video up on our page, I think some of our partners may have shared it as well, is the use of virtual reality and how virtual reality can actually be something that can help people deal with pain. It's fascinating, and I'll let you guys take a look at that online.
So, guys, I wonder, why do you all think it's so important that we focus our journalistic eye on this addiction crisis in this way? Like, we talk about the ripple effect. World Channel's looking at incarceration this month. But I wonder if you can speak to the importance of us all training our journalistic eye towards addiction and what it means in our communities.
Well, I'll start, Chris, with that one. I think it goes to what the policeman just said in the piece we just watched, when he said that this is the biggest crisis that we faced. I can't remember, did he say in this decade or this century or something to that effect? And I think that even though we all get it because we're covering this every day, I think there's still people out there who don't get it, and we see that in some of the comments that are coming on the page. And I even heard from even one of my colleagues here in the building this week, after they covered one of the stories. They said, I knew that this was a problem, but after doing an interview with a mom who had lost her daughter to addiction, I really get it now. So sometimes it takes people hearing it over and over again. Even when we think it's been saturated or people are tired of it, it takes a while for it to sink in.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say, I see on the Facebook feed, Victoria writes and says, the film helps us realize how fragile sobriety is. That is such a great point, and it is fragile, certainly, in battling addiction of all forms. But there is something really dangerous and unique about the opioids crisis. I talked to the longtime director of the drug section of the local crime lab. Says he's seen nothing like this in multiple decades in his career. And what we know is so far what they've been trying hasn't really worked. There is a situation in this community where we are way short on just detox beds. There's 25 detox beds in Monroe County, the county I'm sitting in right now. The average daily need is almost 5 times that. So they're sending people, first of all, you wait a week or 2 weeks, and they're sending people 90 minutes away just to get to a bed, and they're not even sure if insurance will cover it. The system is really broken right now for this, and there are ripple effects everywhere. But it also starts with prevention. There is economic dispossession that in some cases is leading people into addiction. There are people who simply want pain management techniques. They're worried about being stigmatized. They're worried about losing opioid access when they're not addicted, but they say that they need it. What's going to happen to them? So there's so many tentacles to this that journalistically you could probably work on this for years and never run out of angles to cover. And that's what makes it sort of difficult to cover, because sometimes with a story or a beat, you focus on one particular aspect. But there is so much to this. That's why when we say ripple effect, it's not just a slogan or a catchphrase. There are so many different directions that this hits communities in, and that's why I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, as Marlene and Sarah have mentioned, to get that perspective in other cities. What are you trying? What's working? What are the challenges you're facing? Journalistically, we have a big, big challenge ahead of us.
And I think more broadly, as a public media partnership, this is sort of the future of public media, I think, right now. As we are growing, as a lot of media is shrinking, public media is generally speaking growing, and we have this breadth across the country where we can actually sit together and say, let's kind of pick up with reporters across the country to figure out what's really going on with this big issue. Opioids is the important one for us to be doing right now, but there will be a lot more, and I think you'll see lots more of this collaboration across stations as we realize the power that can have and that our voices can have in public media.
And Chris, just one more comment on this is that almost everyone we know has been impacted by this. Who does not know somebody that has been impacted? But everybody has been impacted by this. I mean, here in Ohio, we're second behind West Virginia in the number of overdose deaths in the country. So everyone in Ohio has been impacted by this. It's one of the most important stories in the country right now.
Guys, thank you so much. I think it's so important that we were able to bring you all together, and I'm looking forward to looking at the reporting that's going to be happening the rest of the week and throughout the year. Just real quick, I just want to remind everybody, Evan, when is the live show tomorrow? What time? Just get that out.
Talk show, and I want to let the audience know it's in 3 cities, but you can listen wherever you are in the country. So 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. It's 1 hour. It's going to fly. We've got 5 outstanding guests, and I've got a hard job ahead of me to make sure we really focus it, because everyone has such important perspective on pain management. But I think, as Marlene just mentioned, everybody knows somebody impacted by opioids, and certainly everybody knows somebody who struggled with pain, whether it's after a surgery or chronic. That's one of the focuses tomorrow. So if you're not in one of those cities, if you're not in Portland on OPB, Cleveland or ideastream, Rochester on WXXI, or WEOS across the Finger Lakes, we'd like you to listen online, and all of those sites will stream it for you, but I'll give you my easy one. It's WXXI.org/listen, and you can listen wherever you are. And we're really looking forward to that conversation tomorrow.
All right, we will stay tuned in. We will also try to stream it on World Channel's Facebook page. Any final words from everyone?
Just thank you so much again, Chris, for this opportunity to reach your audience and to bring this most important story. And Evan, I look forward to continuing this conversation tomorrow.
Yeah, I do too, Marlene. And Chris, the work that you and World is doing is so important on this. That was one outstanding piece of work put together. You could see just it took so much that I think makes journalism great. You took data, but you also brought in personal stories that helped illustrate it. Kudos to your team for the work you're doing. I know WXXI is proud to work with you on that, and we'll look forward to more later this week.
Right. Can I give out IdeaStream's website?
Go for it. Go for it.
It's ideastream/opioids. Is that right? I've got my producer right next to me. ideastream/opioids. ideastream.org/opioids crisis.
And if you come to opb.org, we will have everything there for you. And just remember that this is a very important week when we're covering this. But sadly, the opioid crisis is not going away on Friday. And I think I can probably speak for all of us and say that we're committed to following this and making sure that our voices stay in this conversation and that everyone's stories are heard. So this is perhaps just the beginning.
All right.
Well said.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm Chris Hastings, executive producer for World Channel. Thank you for joining us here today. Please be sure to tune in to the work that is going to be streaming and broadcasting all this week across social media and our platforms in our local cities. If you want to see Opiate from the Inside again, it will be posted in the PBS app right now, and at worldchannel.org and at WXXI.org and across social media. We want to share these stories as far and wide as we can, because when you share a story, it may help somebody else. And if you have comments, please leave your comments here. Send it to us via email, and of course, let us know what we're not seeing. It's important that we get out there and that we hear from you. I'm Chris Hastings, executive producer for World Channel, and I hope to see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.